We complemented those community workshops with commission and council work sessions. Those work sessions totaled 5 each for planning and zoning, as well as 5 for council. Those often centered on specific discussion items, and I think were very helpful in helping us arrive at a plan for discussion this evening. Again, we also supported all of that with the typical components of a project website, social media postings, and email blasts and newsletters. So we try to use every tool that the town has to get out to the public, and as the mayor shared, I think it's fantastic to see the group of residents this evening to talk about the plan and its final steps. So that takes us through how we got to the plan, but what does the plan include? And certainly the foundation of that plan is we worked with the public and their input to arrive at a vision statement that creates the ultimate goal of what this plan is seeking to achieve. And we have a series of supporting values to complement that vision. So everything within this plan is intended to roll up to that vision statement and those supporting values. And I think through this effort, we've received a lot of support for that vision statement and those values. And that encourages me or my feelings about this plan, that on its basis, the foundation is there. How we go about achieving that is always going to be part of the conversation, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that this evening. But as far as the structure of the plan, once we had that vision and values in place, we then worked to develop a structure of the plan that was focused around 3 primary themes. Those themes help to organize the elements or topics that the general plan must address. And so while we spent time to focus on creating themes that help capture those vision and values, we still, at the foundation of the plan, need to touch specific elements. And so this plan still meets state statute in terms of addressing those key elements, along with a few elective elements. Within all of that, though, we have a series of goals and policies that guide us on whatever topic it might be, whether it's land use, growth, circulation. We've gone through a lot of wordsmithing to get those goals and those policies to say what we mean. And I appreciate, as the mayor shared, all of the residents that went through this document and took the time to wordsmith to ensure that the words in this plan, whether it's read today, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, hopefully resonate just as much as they do today. But the best takeaway, I think, from our efforts is while we established some great goals and policies, we also committed ourselves to action items. And that's something that state law does not require this general plan to do. And Carefree took the opportunity to say, no, we're going to give ourselves a to-do list. And I think this to-do list is something that we can really get going on. And so I hope that we can find common ground this evening to seek an ability to focus on some of the progressive action items that are in this plan. And so within that context, I thought beyond going through the plan itself ad nauseum, which we've all discussed in prior meetings, we thought the best use of council's time is just to share what we took back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the prior meeting that provided a recommendation to council. So I'll go over what we presented to the commission, what was discussed at the commission, and then what they arrived at to then present what is up for discussion or decision by the council this evening. So when we went back to the commission after we had our series of work sessions with the council, we shared with the Planning and Zoning Commission the feedback we heard from the council in regards to those 4 primary final discussion areas. It was the community park and state land site, the Carefree Water Company, residential above retail, and the special planning area or SPA designation at the northwest corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway. I think a lot of the Planning and Zoning Commission and those in the audience naturally all were on the same page with 3 of the 4 topics. And that is the community park and state land, Carefree Water Company, and residential above retail. That there was not a lot of discussion on that the Planning Commission recognized the suggestions from council, and those suggestions were pretty much holistically accepted as part of their deliberations. So when we listened to the commission discuss the general plan following our presentation, some of the comments that came forward out of that meeting is the primary focus was centered on the northwest corner special planning area. Those in favor of the SPA cited a need to uphold fiscal responsibility and favored explicitly stating what can and can't occur on that corner rather than evaluating on a case-by-case basis in the future. Now, those against the SPA noted a financial need is not imminent on that particular site, and expressed removal does not take away the ability to explore or continue to explore economic opportunity via an applicant-driven process, as opposed to being maybe proactive from a standpoint of including the SPA. Now, approximately 18 residents did get up and speak at that hearing. The majority of residents that spoke stated they were that the northwest corner spa should be removed. And then with that, a first motion was made recommending approval of the general plan as drafted. Now, that plan that was taken to the commission, again, for clarity for everybody, included, excluded the SPA area at the northwest corner. So a motion to accept the plan as drafted would have excluded the northwest corner SPA, and that motion failed 3-4. Following additional discussion, a vote of 4-3 did approve the general plan with an amendment to include all language previously stricken regarding the northwest corner spa, as well as identifying the northwest corner properties with a special hatch designation. And so what does that mean, Matt? Well, that means that this slide captures all of the changes that were provided to remove the SPA. And so in essence, we reverted all of that to put the SPA back in per the Planning and Zoning Commission's direction and recommendation to council. So what you see here is whether you believe an SPA should be in or out. The 1-7 captures all of the locations that deal with that northwest corner SPA. And so those would be the areas that would need to be addressed depending on your particular viewpoint. Now, from a map standpoint, what that looks like is the map on the left was the map that council suggested and that was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you see the northwest corner is yellow or very low density residential. At the culmination in what was recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission and what is before the council tonight is the map on the right, which shows a hatch, which shows a yellow hatch for the very low density residential along with a gray hatch for the special planning area designation. There is also a footnote that goes along with that hatch that says, in this area that denotes a hatch of 2 land use types, very low density residential and special planning area. Either land use type may be acceptable based on a formal zoning or development request for the subject area. So that was accomplished with the direction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Now, what I think that really comes down to is it is not colors on a map that we're discussing this evening. It really comes down to, or I should back up, that we have in our land use legend, in our types of land uses for this general plan, we have a resort land use type. So if we were looking for that site to be a specific resort, we could have used a resort hotel land use designation, but that was not used. If we thought this site would be something else, some other commercial use, we have a commerce, or commercial, I should say, land use designation. We could have made that corner commercial. But it was all recognized that this corner is special. Thus, that is why a special planning area is a common tool to utilize as a compromise when we're saying, commercial doesn't feel right, resort doesn't feel right. So we use a special planning area to help qualify what that designation means. And so that's why I pull up this language, right, that describes that northwest corner, and the intent of the process, whether you agree with it or not, the intent was to help qualify what that special planning area would be focused on, and not to leave it wide open to a commercial designation or a resort designation, and to be able to put some of these specifics on it, which for the benefit of the record, I'll just read succinctly, quickly, these 1 through 9, that within this northwest corner of the Carefree Highway in Tom Darlington, that a more economically sustainable, destination-based, low-profile, casita-style resort use with limited compatible commercial retail uses could be appropriate, provided that the development, 1, establishes an effective open space buffer to the very low-density residential neighborhood to the west. 2, provides for the continued preservation of the natural wash in accordance with floodplain regulations and the Carefree 3B final plat. 3, supports the town's fiscal and economic development goals and aligns with the evolving commercial nature and resort lifestyle found in the area. 4, utilizes high-quality architectural character, contextual materials, desert colors, all sited uniquely into the existing landforms, complementing the existing adjacent and nearby uses, and avoiding commercially branded architecture to provide a unique and cohesive design character. 5, utilizes massing, building heights of 30 feet or less, and density to minimize site disturbance, and while taking into account proximity to adjacent uses, and is thoughtful of adjacent homeowner views to prominent landforms. 6, focuses retail components east and south of the existing wash, or where not to have an impact on existing residential. 7, incorporates the natural Sonoran desert landscape. 8, prohibits any access to While Away Road and only residential access onto Langwood Lane. Commercial or delivery access onto Langwood is prohibited, and any emergency only ingress-egress to Langwood Lane is via controlled access only. And 9, there shall be no drive-through uses, gas stations, car washes, garages, storage facilities, box stores, fast food pads, and/or outdoor recreational courts. So I apologize to take everyone through it, but we've been a while since we've read that into the record, and so I want everyone to understand what it is that is in the plan as far as including information, so that we're clear on the decision that is before us this evening. And I share all of that because I'm hopeful that we've been through 19 months of this. We've had 18 meetings that are probably well over 36 hours worth of discussion, more than 1,600 individual comments that have been distilled into 24 goals, 127 policies. But the part I'm going to close on are those number of actions, 31 actions that can be started when this plan is hopefully ratified by voters in November. And there's great actions, whether it's relative to open space and parks or whether it's relative to water conservation. And so I encourage everyone to seek a language or an approach that will arrive at trying to get us to implement this plan, as opposed to us continuing to kind of go around with the words in this plan, and recognize that we have additional steps within the various processes whether it be zoning or others, that can continue to allow dialogue to ensure that this last corner, literally, of the general plan, in terms of the northwest corner, shouldn't be the thing that stops us from being able to accomplish some of the great things in this plan. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you, answer any questions that you may or the council may have.
Oh, thank you, Matt. So just to give everyone an idea how the evening flows, from here on, the council will discuss the general plan what we have before us and any ideas or thoughts or modifications they may have in mind. Then we'll have a public hearing, so the public can come up and express themselves. Then when that's finished, we'll close the public hearing, we'll bring it back to council, council will be able to discuss it some more, and then we'll have a vote. And hopefully we'll have a vote which results in an adoption of the plan. Adoption of the plan requires 5 out of the 7 of us up here to vote yes and to the motion for approval of the plan. And then if that happens, if a supermajority is attained, then it goes to the voters in November. So that's how the evening works. I believe all the issues in the general plan have been settled with the exception of the northwest corner. But if any council wishes to revisit any of the other items, we're happy to do so. That's what we're here for. Did you have a comment?
Well, if you're done,
Oh, no, I have a lot to say.
I'll be back.
Okay. So, just looking back, during the 60-day comment period, if you look at those comments, if you look at the executive summary of that, it states that there was roughly 353 comments and described them as unique comments. And a large majority of the submissions expressed a desire to remove the SPA. That was in the executive summary of those comments. We also received a petition of 90 folks, 90 residents who signed up to say, leave the SPA in. And we received that after the comment period, 2 days prior to the March workshop for the town council, but we still consider those, right? It's the right thing to do, and we should pay attention to what people have to say. And as a mayor and council, I think we always endeavor to listen and respect our residents. So we have to use our brains, but we also listen to public input. So if we look back on some of the things that major things that have been tackled in the last few years, decommissioning of the Boulder Sewer Plant, we listened to the residents. The acquisition of the Cave Creek water accounts within the town of Carefree, we listened to residents and moved forward with that. Going back to the northwest corner and the SPA, if the SPA were to be removed and the property eventually developed as it is zoned at 1 house per 1.7 acres, the town would lose a sales tax revenue stream. But I would argue that the likelihood of that is slim. The town's this is our 40th anniversary. No one has approached the town to build homes on that property. So while it is a possibility, I would argue that it is, in fact, unlikely. And I think most of us would agree it is a commercial corner. Even those who have spoken to remove the SPA, they will acknowledge that it is a commercial corner. So contrary to what some might say, removing the northwest corner SPA does not eliminate the possibility of an applicant coming forward with an application for a general plan amendment to make it into a commercial enterprise that'll generate revenue. And if we pull it out and we allow for an applicant to come forward, it would allow the opportunity for an engaged public to participate in the process. And I think it's also important to note that should the SPA be removed, all those stipulations that Matt showed us, right? All those stipulations that are built into this general plan that came before us would not just be lost or disappeared. The next mayor, next council, the next planning and zoning commissioners, the constituents, the residents are going to hold those folks feet to the fire, and they're not going to forget all those stipulations, and that'll be the starting point for that discussion. So in this, when we decide what to do here, we have to weigh economic realities and political realities. So earlier this year, Commissioner Burns, Peter Burns of the Planning and Zoning Commission, he presented a financial analysis that showed that the town would be secure until about 2032. That analysis didn't include impact for the northeast corner, okay? And that there are discussions happening where that may very well happen sooner than later. Time will tell. You never know what can happen. So now let's talk about the political realities. When the general plan amendment was brought forward and approved, there were many opportunities for public input. There were. I was here. But the public wasn't engaged. Since then, public engagement has changed. Public engagement in our town has changed. We have residents who want to be heard, to have ideas. Public engagement has changed across America, in cities and towns across America. It has changed at school board meetings. If you tune in to a Maricopa County Board of Supervisor meeting, there's public engagement. Things you never would have seen 3 or 4 years ago. So now people are engaged and it is a reality. So we can either embrace this new reality and the benefits that it'll bring to us, or we could ignore it. So what happens when we embrace it? We need to look no further than the sign discussion that we had last month. So several months ago, we worked with a consultant to put together a sign package. We brought it to council. We tabled it. Why did we table it? Because one, the scope of the project was probably bigger than a lot of us were ready to accept, but we also tabled it because the citizens wanted an opportunity for more participation and the opportunity to become familiar with the project. So what happened? The stakeholder group was increased, they had meetings, the public was engaged. They were engaged in civil engagement. It was great, and it produced a product that came to council, I believe last month or the month before, that we approved. And I think everyone in that room, whether we're a resident, we approved it unanimously, councilperson, staff, we all think we were in a better place. Even those who didn't like the plan think it was better than the plan that we were looking at before we tabled it. So the lesson learned is that if we remove the SPA and an applicant comes forward with a general plan amendment, our residents will actively participate and we will produce a better product. And I'd also add that time and time again, I've heard, our town, it's only 3,700 people, but it's full of people who have great experiences and know-how. And all you have to do is look at, we put out a call for applicants for planning and zoning, for the Sky Ranch Community Relations Committee. We get people we've never seen before who are just fantastically well-versed in whatever we were trying to accomplish. So when a general plan applicant steps forward in the future, it's reasonable to expect we will tap into that same energy and that same expertise that's in our community that produce a good general plan amendment. Excuse me. So having said that, I would ask that the language in the current draft of the general plan remove references to the northwest corner SPA. But at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, it was expressed that development community, if we just take it out, and they will hear that we're not welcoming to development on that corner. And listening to you, I know you are. It's just that it's a matter of process and having an opportunity to participate and to express yourselves. So I think that's a great comment. So how do we overcome that comment? How do we stop developers from misconstruing our position on development on that corner? So I would just like to suggest that after we've eliminated some of the text about the northwest corner, that we add some things into it, right? So I suggest we take out the SPA, but we put in some text that if a developer reads it, he will understand that they're not adverse to doing it. I just need to go through a process like I have to go through every other town where I bring a general plan amendment, then I go through a zoning process, and then it goes to, hopefully, to fruition. So I would suggest, and Matt, can you go, if you have it on your computer, go to page 27 of the general plan. Okay. So, if you, page 27 is the growth management part, the growth element of the general plan. And if you look at that page, there's 3 items, because it focuses on areas where we, in our little town, have opportunities for commercial development. It looks at the town center. It looks at the northeast corner, and it looks at the northwest corner. And this section is specifically meant to address areas that are experiencing growth pressure. And like I said earlier, I believe that even those who are opposed to including the SPA in the general plan think the northwest corner is a commercial, potential commercial corner. So Matt, do you have a hope of doing this? Because I think it's kind of critical, even if it takes a moment. Okay. So just bear with us for a second. All right, thank you, Matt. So this is the growth management page, right? And it shows the 3 critical areas where there's potential, or there is commercial, or there's potential commercial. Town center, northeast corner, northwest corner. So to take out, if we take out the SPA, all of that text below where it says northwest corner, Carefree Highway, and Tom Darlington would be removed. So what I'm suggesting is we put in some alternative text. And the way I would suggest it reads, and I'll read it to you, is this area is comprised of 5 parcels totaling approximately 21 acres with frontage along Tom Darlington Drive and/or Carefree Highway. Pretty simple, right? We've gone over this so many times. It's just a lay of the land. Due to the town's heavy reliance on sales tax revenue and limited availability of undeveloped land, ongoing care should be given to exploring future and/or evaluating proposed revenue-generating land uses in this area, including a destination-based, low-profile casita-style resort. So the SPA is out, but then there would be text here which would inform a developer that this property has legs. It has the possibility, the town is telling me in their general plan that this is a candidate for a destination-based, low-profile style resort use. And so by using that, or inserting that text, it kind of tells, basically it tells us where we are. Right now, where we are, there's no consensus, seemingly, right? Everything's pretty tight and close. But it also, what it does is it acknowledges this fact and simply agrees to evaluate what can happen on this area. And we are acknowledging that this corner is a prime commercial corner, and sales tax revenue is key to our town's financial viability. And in talking to people who want to take the SPA out, they would say that, and I think folks who want to leave it in would say that as well. But if we enter this text, we have to go back to what Matt was saying. We can't just enter text and think things are going to happen. We have to have an action item to move it forward. So if we look at other things that we did in the general plan, we did things about water, we did things about open space, and for those we created actions, right? On water, we created, we allowed for a water commission or a water committee. For open space, we said we're going to create an open space committee. So the purpose of those things was to execute what was in the text that was in the general plan. So let's go to page 80 of this document. So if we go to action SCAC. So SCAC talks about the northeast corners as an SPA and the northwest corner as an SPA. So what I'm suggesting is that this paragraph can remain with one minor change. And I'll just go ahead and if you can see it there, you can read it. And I'll read it to you and I'll point out the change. So utilize the Planning and Zoning Commission or a town council appointed committee as an economic development advisory group to provide citizen guidance on the redevelopment of the village center and redevelopment of the SPA area, not plural, singular, area, at the northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, as well as the undeveloped land at the northwest corner of Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington. So by just that slight modification in this action item, we are including an action that will address the potential for the potential of an applicant to come forward, but not only that, to kind of beat the bushes actively, think about what can come here. Encourage, if someone approaches us, engage with them. And that's what this action item would do. If we just remove that area, the areas to an area, and then that way it still encompasses the northwest corner. So both of these changes, additional text and this modification of this action items, would send a message that we as a town understand the need and are willing to entertain commercial development on that corner. But it still requires an applicant to come forward with an application for a general plan amendment. So I would just ask that we remove the northwest corner SPA and insert the language that I described and adopt a general plan and then move it on to the voters. So after having said that, I would open it up to comments from council.
So John, I think we can achieve those goals leaving in actually the SPA, because I'm glad to hear you not talk about the transparency side of the equation, because we were transparent in this process and maybe people weren't engaged, but it is well documented. All of the meetings that we had, from the neighborhood meetings to the community public meetings to the planning and zoning meeting and also the town council meeting, that people had an opportunity to share their voice. That is well documented. It is not true that we were not transparent in this process. Secondly, the other thing I heard from people is that they didn't feel they had a voice or control over the outcome for this special plan amendment. And from my perspective, there are plenty of opportunities to share your voice, because if you're suggesting that we keep in a low-profile casita-style resort, we already have that, and we have on page 27 listed the parameters, which Matt had up on the screen, that are allowable. And I have only heard one complaint about those, and that comes on Langwood Lane, where they want to be sure that they don't have people going to a resort on and off Langwood Lane. Otherwise, I did not hear any objections from anybody about any of the parameters that are in the special planning area document. So if we see a plan coming up in the near future or down the road, which I think is possible down the road, it's not imminent, there will be plenty of opportunities to share your voice. There will be an application, which I imagine would have a rendering, which would be a public process, and people will have the ability to share their thoughts. There are also issues to consider and be examined, such as traffic, noise, water, and light. Those will be public processes, and people will have the ability to share their opinion. So instead of taking out the SPA and starting over, we have an opportunity for people to share their voice. And at the end of the day, the land will have to be rezoned, which is a public process going through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it will have to go to the town council as well. If, by chance, we get to that point and people are still unhappy, even though it did get to that point somehow, it can be referred to voters to vote on it. So to say that we were not transparent is not true, and to say that you didn't have a voice to control the outcome is not true as well, because there are plenty of opportunities to share your opinions going forward. And at the end of the day, if you are very unhappy with that, it can be referred to voters. So I think we can accomplish all of what you're suggesting by leaving the SPA in, because there will be engagement from the community. There's no doubt about that. But to take it out and start over after all of the hard work that was done, and it's not valid that we weren't transparent, it's not valid that people will not have a voice, they will have a voice. So we don't need to take it out to accomplish what you're asking.
So, I'll let you go, Councilman. I never said we weren't transparent, and I said.
I know, I
said-
appreciated that.
I said that there were many opportunities for the public to be engaged, but we live in a different time. We live in a time now where we have an engaged public, and I'm saying we should give them another bite at the apple.
Well, they will have a bite at the apple, because there are going to be plenty of opportunities down the road to, when a plan comes, to share their voice. Because I think we all agree that it's a commercial land, it's a casita-style resort, will maximize the value for our community, because we're always looking at land use maximizing the value. That's what we should be doing. And so this way, if we leave it in, there are going to be plenty of opportunities for people to share their voice.
And
the
if we
thing is-
take it, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Oh,
Didn't mean to
well,
cut you.
if we are, the way I see it, we are responsible for taking the needs and the wants of the community into consideration with our fiscal future. It was clear that there was comments back that our fiscal position, we don't have any problems imminently. Decisions we make today impact us into the future. We can't just look out and say, we'll figure out 2032 when we get to 2032. That's completely irresponsible. Many of us left states that did that, and we're here because we don't do that. I can't in good conscience, after 35 years of investing in public infrastructure, analyzing state and local government debt, make decisions that I know put you on a poor policy path. So to me, leaving in the SPA gives us the opportunity for everybody to have a voice through the public process, and gives us the ability to keep the optionality of this land to maximize value for the town down the road. I think it's good policy to do that, and I think it's bad policy, in my opinion, to take it out and make us start over. There's plenty of opportunity for people to have a voice.
So I think this whole issue is really confusing, taking it out, leaving it in. I do want to get back to the point that we only have 2 areas that we can still use to generate revenue for the town, and that's the northwest corner and the northeast corner. And so we have to make sure that however we do this, and frankly, I can argue leaving it in and taking it out, that we protect our ability to generate revenue in one of our only 2 remaining areas.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking for the best way to state that.
May I? As written, the SPA actually has more strict parameters than what you're proposing, Mayor Crane. in that there are height restrictions, there are development restrictions, there are architectural restrictions. It's in there. This process, Matt even pointed out, 18 public meetings over 19 months. 18. Now, I can understand missing, one or two or three or four meetings, but 18 public meetings. People were made aware of the process. We were all working around the same restrictions during the pandemic. People will say, well, it was because, there was no transparency because it was the pandemic. I worked virtually, and I wasn't cheating the system during the pandemic. We all had to work that way. They were publicized very clearly. The rules were followed throughout the process. This was a very time-intensive, very expensive process. And to have to start this over again, when we have firm parameters in place to give our framework and our potential rezoning and development in the future, it's right here, guys. It's in the plan. The restrictions are listed. And as you had pointed out, the potential, there are only a couple of parcels left in this community of which we can commercialize. And that northwest corner in particular, 40 years ago, was identified as a major thoroughfare for retail commerce in this town. So there's an opportunity. If anyone has ever walked that property or seen it from overhead, there's not a lot you can do against the street, and there's a big wash that runs through it. So the development has to be very strategic, and what is outlined within the SPA lists all of that. So we obviously, throughout this process and the time and the effort and the cost that went into getting to this point, we need to continue to move forward. And anything remaining in the future is going to require public comment, public vote, everything down to the greatest finite detail. But we've got to get past this point.
If I may.
Yes. Councilman Hatcher.
Vince, I agree with you to a point. And having an elevated number of restrictions on what we can do with that land doesn't increase the options of what can be put there. It whittles it down to a point where the only option is a resort. Where I think what we're trying to do, at least I feel, is that I don't want to be that restrictive necessarily at this time. Number one. Not that the restrictions aren't bad, I'm just saying it is whittling down the options. With respect to your first comment, Mayor, on what we think of verbiage you would want to put into the plan, as I recall, you did mention a project such as a casita-style resort. If we did put in verbiage similar to that, I would encourage us to add one or two other ideas of what could go there, and not to, if we're going to, I don't think we should mention just the resort deal. We should, if we're going to do anything, let's give some boundaries or some ideas, so when a developer does read it, he's going to read that and go, well, it seems to me they want a spa or a resort. Well, I'm just saying, I think we should add a couple different other options. When if you take it out completely, that's one thing. If you're going to leave it in there, the reference to the casita, we should add a couple other ideas so it's not just demonstrating or saying that we've kind of made a decision, this is what we want, hint, hint scenario. I just think we need that a little bit more broad in that if we do make that choice.
What kind of things would you like to add?
I don't know. I think that maybe the community, we can have a big vote and see what they say, and put a couple ideas in. It could be, whatever. I'm thinking,
A
Well, when
Walmart,
we-
maybe?
hot dog
Well,
stands,
when
car
when-
washes.
Please,
I'm kidding.
Councilman has the floor.
I'm kidding. Just a couple other ideas. That's all I'm suggesting. So we don't narrow ourselves down so that it just doesn't stick in the developer's mind that, oh, they want a casita-style resort. It's just a way to broaden it out because, and one more point, if I may. With respect to the, all the other options, Sheila, that you had mentioned of, we're going to have more resident input, they're gonna have P and Z discussions, we're gonna have council meeting discussions, we're gonna, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds very much like the process that we would go through if we left the spa in place. Sounds very similar to me to the process we would go through if the spa was not in place. So I'm not quite sure of the technical advantage of having it, if the process that we go through as a council and as a community is the same.
Well, when I think about what the neighborhood process that we went through, where we got the neighbors that were most immediately impacted, their input was for the casita-style resort, a low-profile casita-style resort. It's obvious today, not that there are any facts about the future, and we know what, in 5 or 10 years, what that's gonna look like, but today it's pretty clear to me that we don't need any more retail or other types of commercial projects at that corner, because there are struggling corners around that
Right.
that are not doing, that have vacancies. So we made, I wouldn't say a promise, but a promise to the residents on the northeast corner, and we adhered to that when a developer came to
Right.
us to say, let's put in high-density residential. No, we had a plan, we had a process, and we're not doing that. I mean, pretty much came down to that.
Right.
And I agree with that. So we now have a group of residents, particularly on Wildaway, who agreed to this style of development. And so to start over and say, well, now we're going to put in the general plan, other options, I think is going back on our word. But also, I can't see today really what else is the maximum, to maximize the value of that land, to me is not more retail in that
But
corner.
also recognize that, as you mentioned, we visited with those around the land, and we discussed various things with them, and you say collectively they all felt this, having a casita-style resort was acceptable in their eyes. However, the development of that corner may not occur for another 10 years. Between now and then, those who live in that local area may have a very different perspective. Some people may move, some people may change their mind, and and they may feel the same, or they may feel different. I just think that we're being presumptuous, assuming that within the next 10 years, they're all going to feel the same way, those group of people, and I don't think that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
That's all.
Once again, Councilmember Hatcher, the framework and the restrictions are baked into this, in that there is only so much. I know that you had said that they should have there should be other ideas for that corner, but truthfully, there isn't anything else that is fitting for that corner when you look at it. And having walked the property with the owner, who also had intimated the same comments regarding the casita, the wash that goes through that's as wide as a canal, and also the boulders along the frontage along the street limit what can be developed, and that it has to set back. And already having this in the framework and the restrictions being there, we're better off with that corner being in the SPA as opposed to rewording or removing. It's here. If anyone takes the time to read it, you'll see the restrictions. And it talks about the integrity, the architecture, the density, the height restrictions. It's all in here. It's set.
Right, but I don't have all the restrictions.
I have a concern, and I just walked the property with the owner, and we spent a lot of time together, and we went through the casita plan and how he envisioned it, and what his developer was up to, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that the developer has invested in going forward with the casita-style resort. And one of the things that came up was he also showed me a plan for housing how he would divide it, how he would sell it. And my biggest concern is, and we can argue this all day long, is that we may just lose that property. I mean, all he has to do is stick with his existing zoning and come forward with a plan, and then it's gone. And we really are arguing a little bit. I appreciate Mr. Mayor's arguments, I appreciate Mr. Hatcher, but in some ways we're arguing semantics. I mean, no matter how you slice this, they have to come to us with a plan. The plan has to go through the process. We've said it a dozen times up here, but people get to comment. There's public input, it gets to the council. Nobody's gonna magically just build anything on that property. And it doesn't mean that somebody can't come to us even with a spa there and with a different plan. That's not prohibited. It's not prohibited. So, I mean, in many ways, I think we're worrying about hatching versus yellow versus how it looks in the plan, but again, you know.
Yeah. So if you guys are wondering, when I'm looking down all the time, it looks like I'm sleeping. My eyes are half closed here, but page 27, this is what I'm reading. This protects you. This protects the neighborhood. As written, the framework is here. It's done. It's 19 months.
Also, just a comment, Mike, having the ability to have the residents give input later on with the spa in place doesn't necessarily give them the ability to influence what happens there. If we have this open, if you will, utilizing the approach that the mayor suggested, I believe that their comments and perspectives and points of view have the ability to have input and have an influence on what we do. Because I think if we do it the other way, it's no matter what they say or do, it's going to end up being a resort. And I don't think that's what our job is.
But why do we want to chase off a willing developer? We've got somebody engaged now unless they've left. Why would we want to take the language out? They'll be gone. And you're right, we will have to go back around the mountain.
Please, please. So what we're saying is,
No, no,
in
just-
my opinion,
I just want to make sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheila, John, if my interpretation is wrong, please, I'm open. That's just the way I heard it.
well, I think your comment about leaving the SPA in and then having future owners, future residents who live nearby 10 years from now having to deal with it has merit. But the fact of the matter is, if we take the SPA out, we don't preclude another applicant, not the town, an applicant coming forward to apply for a general plan amendment. And it can happen. And last time I was here, I asked how long it takes, and I was told it takes like 6 months. Okay, so the process takes 6 months. It can still happen.
Okay, but I think we're now mixing something up. So what Stephen is saying is that we should have other options besides a resort. And those are yet to be determined. This general plan's due shortly. And so what you're saying though, John, is that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but your comments are still along the lines of a casita-style resort, but those are just kind of parameters for any future developers to come in and say, we have interest in this land, but it's a casita-style resort without all of the rest of the parameters that we have in the SPA. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if they come back, they don't get to do anything they want. They get to do what we basically allow them to do. We say we can go back and bring back these and even more parameters with which they must operate and make a proposal to us. And we won't forget what they are. I mean, we've talked about it at length. We know what our concerns are, what our wishes are, and maybe when the time comes, the new owners or the owners will think of other limitations they'd like to have. So by taking it out, we're not destining the property for residential. We're just saying we want someone to go through the process from beginning to end and give our more engaged than ever public an opportunity to participate in the discussion.
Well,
And
I-
yes,
so- yeah.
and yes, they did have opportunities, and I said this when I spoke earlier. But the time is different. Our residents are engaged. Let's give them a chance to do it.
I think
Yeah.
it's also
hang on,
important to
hang on.
remember that the land is privately owned, and that owner can do whatever he wants with it. And likewise, I get people that call me constantly, say, hey, you want to sell your house? It doesn't mean I'm going to sell my house. Now, to Councilman Johnson's point, he could very well see what's going on here and the fact that that the spa is removed and wording is changed or whatever's happening, and all of a sudden Carefree is not a business-friendly town, and he may just decide to sell it to a developer to put 5 houses on it. Then what?
So I'd like to go back to Stacy and Matt, because I think, Stacy, you mentioned that if we take it out, it's going to discourage developers from even wanting to try and work with us.
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor Croyer, I think that has been mentioned in the past, not by me specifically, but that is the sense that we believe the development community would feel, because it seems as though we made a statement, we made an action, and then we reverted that action. And I think it would be odd for the development community to come forward and go, well, let me try again. I wanted to add in a couple of things too. Thank you, Mayor. I thought your comments were incredibly thoughtful, and I just wanted to mention a couple of things, though, in terms of engagement. I don't disagree with you, the way that you had sort of expressed how engagement has changed. But what I would like to point out is that we've had a 19-month engagement. We've had that language up there ever since we started this process. In fact, we even refined it. We tightened it based on neighbors. And I understand neighbors come and go. You're right. I think things evolve. And I think maybe what the council might want to consider is, while it's a protection for the neighbors, because Steve Prokopec did work closely with them through the process to create the initial language. We do feel, as Councilmember Amorosa has stated, that when we work with neighborhoods and communities, I think there's an expectation that we follow through. We followed through on the northeast corner when there was pressure to do a development that didn't align with that zoning. Even as we tried to compromise through that process, we just didn't see eye to eye. But what we felt was important is that it was voted on, there was an ordinance in place, and it was the trust of those surrounding neighbors is why that development moved on. I don't know why that would be any different for the northwest corner and that language that's involved. That's some of the things that I had heard. But what I'm getting around to, though, is my point being, is that it is what the neighbors are concerned about, but it's also what you and the community see as a vision. I think this language was creating this vision of, and I think Councilman Amoroso is getting to it in the sense that, well, what else would it be? It isn't going to be just any resort, because if it was, like Matt explained, we have a land use resort, resort land use, excuse me. So this was to both create something unique, create something that protected the neighborhoods, created something that was an economic benefit to the community, that the council felt that, wow, this corner could be something really special planning area. So I think it's also the conversation to understand, how do all of you feel about that language? And like we've talked in the past, we just haven't heard anything counter to that language. And it does seem odd to us to start over again to create the same land use. And it does, it's a step backwards. It just seems odd that the compromise is a special planning area. We have that special planning area. If there's something about that special planning area the public does not like, let us know. That's what we're looking for in terms of engagement, in terms of understanding and creating the document.
Well, I would just say that through the 19 months, there's been one common message at every one of these meetings, and that would be to remove the SPA. That's been a,
But-
no,
Mhm.
no.
But Mayor Crane, I would say, but why? That's, I,
Because, okay, and I would,
but
sorry.
why? Mhm.
And I would say because
Because we,
they didn't participate when we did the process. I would say there was ample opportunity to do so. And now public sentiment has changed,
Mhm.
and we have an engaged public.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that we should give them an opportunity to be engaged from ground zero. And being engaged from ground zero adds about 6 months to the process. And by including text that I suggested, we're telegraphing to potential developers that we get it. We are economic or sales tax driven. We understand that. We understand this is a commercial corner. But you're gonna have to go through the process, just like you have to do in every other town.
I
But I
understand,
think-
but my point is that
Yeah.
we've had a 19-month engagement process. We could have started from any point in that process. I mean, we had a starting point because we went through a process. That's my point.
And I think
Councilwoman
that
Emerson.
But thank you for listening,
this-
thank you.
This will be ground zero, because any developer that puts forth a plan, once again, there will be a rendering. And what does the public think about that? And then we have the traffic and the noise and the water and the light. All of those will be public discussions. So it is pretty much starting from the beginning, but we're starting from the beginning with an SPA which has parameters that were agreed upon in previous public meetings and with the neighbors. And so we're giving people will have the opportunity to share their voices. We're not taking anything away
yeah.
from anybody.
The SPA is highly restrictive, which benefits everyone. In that, even when you, I keep reviewing this paragraph, and even number 9. There shall be no drive-through uses, gas stations, car washes, garages, storage facilities, box stores, fast food pads, and/or outdoor recreational courts. I mean, this is the framework is here. The work is done. We just need to get it done, approve it, move on. Move on. So you can go and work with another town.
Yeah, you know,
And for the sake of moving on, and shrinking the process by 6 months, we will basically ignore the renewed engaged energy of our residents.
exactly. You know, whether we leave it in or remove it, the end is about the same. We're going to end up with the same project. So why not honor the 350 naysays for it?
But what's that going to cost?
Wh-
When it's
wh-
already
wh- wh-
here, the framework is here.
Right, but we don't.
It's done.
Well,
Vince,
We have the parameters, everything is done. We've done the work. It's been 19 months, guys. 19 months.
I hear it, but
It has
This-
nothing to do with it. COVID has absolutely nothing to do with it. The meeting schedule, the transparency, everything is done. There's mistrust, there's rhetoric in Washington. We're residents here. We all live in this community. We all work around here. We all want the same things for this community. We devoted time the past 19 months to a project. The framework is in. If you take the time and you read it and you see what the restrictions are, the development, the integrity, the agriculture, the architecture, everything is set. There is nothing else that needs to be done with this plan. It is done.
But Vince,
Move on.
This material right here, we can keep it, right? We can save it. I don't think that the community, correct me if I'm wrong, but for probably 90% of these restrictions, probably everybody agrees with it. That's not the issue. And we can save this material. We can plug this in 10 seconds. The issue is the ability to be more, they won't have the opportunity to be engaged as we develop this. And if it takes 6 more months, it takes 6 more months. What do
I
we
think-
lose?
I think what we have is a disagreement on where you start for people to share their voice. You think we need to start over for people to share their voice? I think people can share their voice from where we are today moving forward. I
Okay,
have a disagreement on that.
okay, fair enough.
Okay.
So, we've talked at length, and unless any of the council would disagree, I would suggest we open up the public hearing portion of the evening. Okay? So what I would ask during this portion of the program, you have to fill out a slip, you come up and you state your name and your address. And please, I would argue, focus on the merits of the case, either leaving it in or taking it out. There's no need to dig up past history on any individuals, pro or con. Just have good civic discussion, just like we did with the signs. Okay? Pretty simple. So, having said that, we'll open up the public hearing. And I have a number of slips, so when I call you, please come forward, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we'll get on with it. Mr. Ian Barber.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Ian Barber. I'm a Carefree resident. I don't really have a comment, but I have,
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Please state your address.
1711 East Staghorn Lane.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Carefree, Arizona. I don't really have a comment, but I do have a question, and that is for Councilor Johnson. When I was listening to your remarks, it sounded like, from your discussions with the landowner, that the landowner has already invested money in a vision that he has for building a resort. Is that what you said? Because that's what I heard you say.
Not a discussion.
Yes, go ahead.
He called me up and invited me to walk the property with him.
Okay. Well,
And we went through it extensively, and he showed me his vision for the resort, told me what his potential developer, or people who want to buy the property, it's been on a contingency for a while. And effectively, what he said, paraphrasing, is they're waiting to see the outcome of this process. And if the spa is gone, they're gone. That's what he said.
yeah. So-
And then he showed me his alternative, which was houses. And he says, you know, I don't need the hassle. I can build houses here. My kids can build houses here. So I'm just reporting to you what I heard from the landowner.
And I appreciate that because it sounds to me, and maybe this is incorrect, but it sounds to me that the landowner already has his vision, already has invested in this vision, and the SPA, which came, by the way, after the town was in discussions with the landowner and developers about that property, that the SPA may actually have been tailored to his desires as opposed to the way it should be, which is us telling you guys what we want in the general plan for our town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So after the workshop and the council expressed the opinion by a 4-3 margin that we should take the SPA out, I contacted the property owner as a courtesy, and his comment to me was, oh, he'll just wait for an opportunity for the thing to move forward. So maybe he tells different people different things, but that's what he told me. And I don't doubt he told you that, but that's what he told me, so just to be fair.
Well,
Can I just
No,
clarify?
no, you can't,
Okay, I'm
please.
Okay,
Well-
Gary asked me if I would clarify, so.
Well, with all due respect, all as I know is we walked the property and this is what he said.
Yeah, I believe.
Okay, if he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, which I don't believe, I can't help that. But the idea that he's had this vision before we tailored it, there was no tailoring of this vision.
No what?
The spot was not tailored to this.
Yeah.
My understanding, and I was around when we voted for this, that we approached the landowner with this concept of a low-profile casita resort. Did we not recruit him or not?
Yeah, I have to say, I don't think we tailored it for his vision. I'm surprised he has a vision. Okay. And I say that, I'm not disparaging him, I'm saying it because we drove it. He didn't drive it. Okay, Mr. Popopek, you had something to say? A point of clarification.
Yeah, point of clarification, Mary, you just clarified it, that there was no developer involved in this process, and the reason for the town, and Ms. Benedetto asked this question, I've been wanting to answer this question for her, that why did the town make this, why did we initiate this? And the initiation was really for all the reasons that we talked about, which is sales tax generation, trying to do the right things by the neighbors, and the reason and they asked this question of me, why not go through a general plan update that might be coming in the next 2 years or next year? And the comment is that because when you go through a general plan update, it's the mob that tells you what you want in your backyard. When you go through a general plan amendment, which is why the law was created that way, it allows the greatest protection for those neighbors to be able to create the terms of what that development's gonna look like next to them, while we can still create the vision that we wanna see. So that is why we went through that process. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like I made a blood oath to these people. And I would defend what's in that document to make sure that we follow through, that we don't do anything that actually takes away. We can only go backwards from here. We can't go forwards. I urge you to consider, what better can you put in here?
We can put in public input.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate your comment.
Stick to what you came up here to speak
Yeah.
about, please.
Okay, and so to your comment, that was why we went through the amendment process, and there was no developer that was involved. And so
That's
if he
correct.
engaged a developer during that time period, he had the right to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Maureen Benedetto.
Hi, council members and mayor. I'm not sure that I'm going to be adding a whole lot to this thing, but I thought it was very, very interesting, Councilman Johnson, when you said you walked the property with John Lassen. I don't know that I've ever seen him at any of our meetings. I just wonder where he is. If he wants to do right by our town, why doesn't he come and tell all of us his vision? I think it's kind of crazy. This was the vision that was sent out to the neighbors in the general area on August 12th, 2022. This isn't a boutique. Is it a casita? I don't know. Anyway, are we still on this, Mr. Johnson? Is this the vision that the landowner has? I'm curious.
Well, to answer your question is that the developer did that on his own, and he was rebuffed for that. No, his vision was a low-profile casita resort.
Okay.
That's
Well,
what I was.
And then,
Well,
thank
you asked the question,
Yeah, and I said
I've
thank you.
answered it.
Okay. Yeah, I said thank you. Yeah, and then just lastly, I thought that, Mr. Mayor, you said something very interesting while I was sitting there, and you said the applicant should be the developer, not the town. And we have changed as a community, and I think we do want to have a say here. And I like that you're talking about changing this, because you can have somebody send something like this out to the community, and maybe this was part of the 19 months, I don't know. But I hope that you're listening, and I hope, Vince, I don't want you to be the guy that did a lot of development and you gave us the Hampton Inn.
I'm sorry, is that a threat and is that off topic?
Oh, no, I
Ma'am,
didn't
wait,
threaten
please.
you.
Because you're singling me out? Because you're singling me out? Is that a threat, ma'am?
No, you did some public comment on a blogger on the west side.
What,
No, I'm sorry. I just want. Yes. Sorry. Yes, I just want to say that the Hampton Inn isn't a boutique hotel, and it's not. I mean, is that a code
I'm sorry,
word?
that has nothing to do with the agenda item that you came up here to speak on?
Okay, I'm sorry, but I think that we're all listening and we all want the same thing in this town. Nobody's saying they don't want development on that corner. We just want input.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Mike Davitt?
Council, good evening, thank you. Mike Davitt, 37646 North Dream Street. My dad was a football coach for over 30 years, high school, college, and of all places, Rovaniemi, Finland. He was a good coach and a winning coach. He was fond of the concept that basics win ball games. This debate, to me anyway, comes down to basics. Matt pointed out, and he did a nice job with the survey, breaking it down into the 4 final points. I mean, the residents have spoken. Matt threw it out there. I mean, these are the 4 points that the residents asked about. It's as basic and simple as that. Removal of the SPA is not about going backwards. It's simply about listening to what the majority of the residents have expressed in one of the greatest survey turnouts, according to Matt, in maybe Phoenix area history. To simply ignore the majority is the height of arrogance and elitism. Thank you.
Mr. Art Beavis? Oh, please state your address too when you come up.
Oh, sorry. Art Vivas, 7021 East Langwood Lane, Carefree. I don't know how many of you here have followed Back to the Future movie franchise to its recent 4th rendition in April 2024. Well, I want to take you back to Carefree's future. And I ask how many in this room were living in Carefree 20 years ago? Few, I'm guessing. And now, celebrating 40-year anniversary, we've successfully doubled our age. Tonight, I'll remind residents and town employees, elected and appointed officials, that 20 years ago, in November 2004, as then reported by the East Valley Tribune, quote, friction has erupted between Carefree Town Council and a developer who wants to build a resort hotel complex near the town's boundary with Scottsdale, unquote. That developer described the imagined revenue advantages created to benefit Carefree. If that mayor and council supported his project on 10 acres at Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington Road, his, quote, special use permit planned for a hotel with 156 rooms, guest spa, retail shops, and cafes. At that time, this property was described as, quote, below Black Mountain, zoned rural 70, allowing for 6 single-family home lots to be developed, unquote. Town council. That vote emerged, though, after multiple testimonies like we've had here by residents.
Is that 3 minutes?
I'll say the rest. Didn't seem like 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, it never does. Thank you. Ms. Susan Winterstein. So, yeah, please state your name and address. Thank you.
Hello, Susan Winterstein and 7243 East Valley View. Thank you. Mayor Crane, I have to say, I'm really impressed with the fact that you were listening. And so I appreciate that. I want to say that I lived here in Carefree for 15 years in this general area and moved away. And the whole time we left, I couldn't wait to get back. And we are on year 4 of building our house down the way, and I can't wait to get done. But I guess that's my comment. There has been so much forethought, and I have to tell you how many regulations and specific building codes that there are. And, you know, I could complain about it, but I'm not, because I want to think that we've built this beautiful house. But it did take time. And I think that when I listen to the comments, and it is important, nobody wants to see a La Quinta on the corner. It's, you know, nobody wants to see that, I believe. This is a high-end community, and those houses on Black Mountain are absolutely beautiful. And if it were me, and I had to look down on a resort with lighting and whatever else, no matter how beautiful that they're proposing to make it, I would be very sad, just because we moved back here to enjoy the beauty, and we didn't move to Scottsdale or Paradise Valley or whatever. But that was really my comment, that in really listening to everyone and taking into consideration that this isn't going to happen overnight, no matter how much money that we've already spent on a project. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Miss Janet Vivas. So name and address, please.
Looks like I'm going to have to hold it. Janet Vivas, 7021 East Langwood Lane, Carefree. Mayor Crane and Council. The general plan process has been an interesting journey. I've learned a lot about how our town government operates. I've also met many dedicated people who care deeply about Carefree. Some will be our future leaders. We know this flawed major amendment passed when residents were focused on avoiding the approximately 35,000 Arizona COVID deaths. So few were paying attention to town affairs like a major amendment. More recently, many highly visible and inappropriate structural choices in the center have refocused our attention on the town. According to the economic developer, quote, currently no submittal has been made on the property and the town is not in active discussions, unquote. And our recent budget forecast through 2032 says, quote, no immediate panic over town finances is warranted, unquote. So why the haste? Withdrawing the flawed amendment does not preclude future development. Instead, it will promote residents' right to engage in the process without a pandemic hanging over us. This chamber has filled for about 3 years with concerned residents rejecting the SPA, yet some elected and appointed officials resist. So I ask, why do some seek those positions? Is it because they think they're smarter than everyone else, or for the altruistic purpose to learn from and listen to those they represent? So again, an impressive number of people stated they're against the SPA. Our economic forecast looks good, and no builder is ready to develop. Still, residents are disregarded. The SPA, like a ping pong ball, is back in the GP due to a small minority. I'm particularly concerned that 90 pro-SPA petitioners solicited by the ex-mayor and Carefree Truth suddenly jumped in the fray. Their strategy is akin to running a marathon, but instead of actually running the race, they jump in at the finish line claiming victory. Where were they when we spent untold hours in general plan workshops, council meetings, and planning and zoning sessions? Where are they now? They've had the same opportunities to speak as all residents. The town should not yield to or listen to these no-show non-truthers. If the general plan is truly resident-driven, the only way to proceed is to remove the flawed amendment before the general plan goes to the town for a vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ariane Buser.
Hello.
So name and
Yeah,
address,
oh,
please.
Actually, I have a question. Is there a reason, we are on YouTube, is there a reason why you're asking for our addresses? You have never done that before. So, I mean, that's like private information I don't really
no.
want out on the internet
No,
personally,
it's,
but,
actually, we've been derelict in doing it. So
oh, so that
part-
means
part-
everyone has been derelict. Okay,
No, me. I am derelict in doing it.
Okay.
and requiring it.
Okay.
Historically, we have done it, and I think we've had a lot of meetings. The same folks come up here, and we have developed a sense of familiarity, so that we don't ask it anymore. But formally, that's how we should run the meeting.
okay, because it is like PII, you know, from a privacy perspective. Okay, so I live at 100 Easy Street, box number 5862. Ariane Buser is my name. So I just have a real quick question. So Councilman Johnson, you mentioned that there's the owner of the land, he already has a developer in mind. So does that mean then that we can have a resident group that can get involved in what his vision is? Because I'm actually unfortunately I didn't live here at the time when the Hampton Inn was built, but I'm curious, like, was there resident involvement? Was there resident input into what that turned out to be? Because that actually is very different. So I'm just kind of curious about that. And then you also mentioned that if they take the spot out, then the person is threatening to leave and leave the project. Well, maybe that's not the right project then for us, honestly. If they're not willing to work with the residents to make sure that we have something that really works with the town, then maybe that's not the right project we want at the end of the day, but maybe that's just my opinion. And anyway, yeah, so and I actually did attend the majority of the meetings, I think for the 18 months or however long it was. And I thought the discussions were really good. And you know, the spa thing is a hot topic, and Mayor Crane, I do appreciate you wanting to take it out, but then have some restrictions. I do think that we should have some restrictions. I personally am very concerned about some recent laws that the Arizona legislature has passed about residential zoning that could impact Carefree, in the terms of, you know, they could basically take the residential zoning and put like duplexes and bigger high-density buildings on that based on some of the new legislation that has passed. So I guess I'm a little concerned if we don't have any sort of restrictions on what that land could be, then there may be some residential developer could come in and go like, oh, well, this is great. I'm just going to put up 2 duplexes in on this, you know, however many acre lot. So that is a concern of mine, because they did push those things into law. Unfortunately, they're trying to push this whole affordable agenda, which is not good for neighborhoods and will impact towns. And they're trying to move it out to all towns across Arizona, not just the large ones. So that is something that I think everyone should be concerned with. So that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will, 2 comments. One, when the Hampton Inn was proposed, there were opportunities for public input. There were. And secondly, I share your concern about the recent legislation that's been passed by Arizona and signed by the governor. The good news is that the new state statutes do not apply to municipalities of less than 75,000 people.
Well, not yet.
Correct? Okay, but as the law is written today.
Can I add something onto that? Okay, so what's on your screen is pretty airtight as you go through, okay, in the SPA. It addresses all the issues once again. Regarding developers not being attracted to certain areas because of legislation and zoning, you guys know a store called Sprouts, right? We lost Sprouts because Cave Creek refused to issue a will serve letter for water for that corner. And that was an incredible find that would have been developed on the northeast corner had that will serve letter for water been issued. So it's not all bad in terms of what types of development can occur. But what is written, the language in this paragraph and these 9 points address every single concern that could possibly have arisen in protecting that neighborhood and protecting what goes on that property, what the restrictions look like, what the architecture looks like, and in maintaining the charm of the community. Take time, read it, and you'll see that. So, again, Sprouts was an opportunity for us, and because of the fact that we couldn't get a will serve letter for water on that corner, now it is prospering just kitty corner across the street.
Vince, question. There are, as you mentioned earlier, there are 9 bullet points here, guidelines that are in there that we all seem to like, and I think the general public does as well. The issue is that these 9 bullet points are prefaced by a sentence or a paragraph above that states, and on the 3rd sentence here, in primary access, the arterial streets, blah, 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 base low profile, casita-style resort use with limited compatibility, commercial retail use, yeah, thank you, blah, blah, blah. If we took that out, we would still retain those restrictive guidelines that I think in general we all still appreciate.
So you
Would that
propose
work?
keeping the SPA in, but just removing that sentence? Is that what you're proposing?
Well, the SPA, the issue with the SPA, that I hear from everybody, is that we have defined its usage. By removing that sentence out of it, we still retain the 9 restrictive covenants, if you will, on the use of that land that I think the developer needs to, whoever that might be, whatever that project is, will use those when they come up with the project proposal for us. So if we all agree on these 9 bullet points of what the guidelines are to be on that land, why don't we keep them in and just take out the whole reference to the
Right.
casita? Is my
It
point.
doesn't
help?
restrict us to a casita boutique hotel, though. It says retail uses could be appropriate for that property. It doesn't mandate that that's what has to go there.
Well,
So
but
Stephen, are
my
you
other-
saying that the feedback that you have heard is that the reason people don't want the SPA is because it's too restrictive?
No.
What did you
two,
just say?
2 things. I believe that the community appreciates the restrictions that we have placed, just like they did when we did the east corner. Because we all say the same things: quality architecture. We don't want, pickleball courts. We don't want really tall buildings there. We don't want, whatever in this. We're going to appreciate, the Sonoran Desert, et cetera. Those are things that we all want in the final project.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
fair enough.
I just
Okay.
wanted to,
No, hold that thought.
yeah, very good. I apologize.
Okay, Stephanie Barber. Stephanie Barber, there you go.
Stephanie Barber, 1711 Staghorn. If it appears to me that the council is split between those who respect residents' wishes and want to remove the SBA from the northwest corner, and those who believe it would be fiscally irresponsible to do so. To be clear, residents are not objecting to future development on the northwest corner. We are, however, asking to be involved in all major amendments. That is not an unreasonable request. The argument that fiscal responsibility requires us to ignore residents and develop all remaining areas of Carefree to prevent an economic crisis is nonsense. In 2017, Carefree rolled out the Economic Development Plan. Among other things, it encouraged the development of 2 or more resorts, including the northwest corner and another resort on the 48-acre Stant land parcel. The development plan deviated radically from Carefree's general plan, but the town claimed we needed these developments to generate another $3 million a year or the town of Carefree could die. That's a quote. It is a miracle then that 7 years later, Carefree is still very much alive. And even without those 2 new resorts, we managed to build a very healthy $17 million budget surplus. Recently, the town asked Commissioner Burns to update the 10-year economic projection. His conclusion is that Carefree has no reason to panic. We are in good financial shape. The revenue forecast he used for Carefree is essentially flat for the next 10 years, even though Carefree has grown 80% over the past 10 years. He does not include any new development or revenue streams. Nothing on the northeast corner, no replacement of the CVS, no town center revitalization. It's a cautious revenue projection, but it mirrors the methodology that the state of Arizona also uses, so it's a good projection. On the other hand, Carefree's spending forecast is aggressive. In the 17 years from 2017 to 2023, we spent a little over $40 million. Carefree is forecasted to spend 3 times that amount, $110 million over the next 9 years. In addition, Mr. Burns increases our fire service contract from 50%.
Time is up, I'm sorry.
Did you, that wasn't 3 minutes. No, that really wasn't 3 minutes.
No,
Yeah.
I'm sure. No, I'm sorry.
We'll get it next time.
Mr. Anton Wilkie?
Council, Mayor, I'm Anton Wilkie, 2029 Smoke Tree. If I can get this to work, I don't know, okay. I'll keep it pretty simple because 3 minutes obviously flies by. So we're talking about something different than we started with, right? We're talking about, so let's talk about the impact of what we're now on the table. If we leave if we have the language that the mayor wants, but take the SPA out, that does not make other uses more easier, as Mr. Hatcher, as Councilmember Hatcher may be thinking. The process for using a different development there is to make a proposal, amend the general plan to accommodate different usage, and then do rezoning. That's the same for any use except housing and what's currently in the SPA. So that would remain the same. The only difference would be to the usage is now envisioned, low density in the SPA. That would have 6 months added to it. Every other possible use would have the same time. I'm gonna run out of time, I think. I guess I'm gonna say goodbye because I'm gonna run out of time. But I do support leaving the SPA in just because the one most likely commercial use is the one that it streamlines. Every other use is unaffected by whether the SPA is in or out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. John Nimsky?
John Nimsky, address is 9060 East Lazywood Place. First of all, I don't represent any group, whether it's East Carefree, West Carefree, etc. I'm here to speak in opposition to the spa. My background is, among other things, economic development. I developed the Honor Health Shea campus. I developed the Litchfield campus. So I know a little bit about economic development and what it takes in terms of traffic study, etc. There's absolutely no reason in my mind that we need to include this spa in the general plan at this point. I think there is plenty of time for this issue to be tabled, to be brought back to the P&Z, and then to move forward in that whole transactional process. I will remind this council that I used to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I will also remind the council that during that time we had a developer, the guy that developed Kierland's Commons, come to Carefree, come to the P&Z to propose a development plan for the central part of Carefree in terms of the town center. The town council worked with that developer for several years, and ultimately John Lewis backed out. So I think this takes a lot more thought than, in my view, has been given. I watched the previous, a good part of this online because I had a previous conflict. I agree with what you're saying, Mayor Crane, which is that there has not been enough time to have the residents of Carefree give input. I've lived here for 30 years, and so I think I know a little bit about what this community wants, how this community sees Carefree, the community's vision of Carefree, not a developer's vision, not an individual town council's vision, because we live in this community, and we make this community what it is. I've lived in various parts of the world. I've lived in other countries, and small communities like Carefree, where you have 1,300 or so people, the only way those communities thrive is not if you have division, but if you have a common purpose that everybody can agree to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rick Comiskey.
My name is Rick Kazmiski, 3172 East Ridgeview Place. I want to thank everybody involved, the people in the room, the people that have been involved forever. This has been a very engaging process, as you had said, and that's exciting. I am here to say I think all of those inputs have been boiled down to a special planning area, not a resort in a general sense or a commercial in a general sense, but a special planning area. I want to see it kept in a commercial sense, not a residential, because long-term, I think that's good for Carefree. Regardless of the timing on this, it's going to take a long time for any of this to happen. I believe that there will be lots and lots of opportunities for people to be engaged, and it's clear that a lot of the community is engaged. One other thing I want to state is that we should not misconstrue a very, very vocal minority. Remember, there's 3,700 residents, that those very, very vocal people that say, do not do this, we haven't been listened to. I agree they might feel that way. There's a whole bunch of other people that have not been involved because they assume that this was a part of that and they want to be able to vote on it with it in. If you keep it in, it has extreme restrictions to keep it so that it is the way it would be envisioned for Carefree, and it gives people a chance to vote on it, the 3,700 people to vote, not just a very, very vocal minority. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jan Neal.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Jan Neal, P.O. Box 878, Carefree. I support fiscal responsibility and reasonable development in Carefree. I do expect our town officials to listen to the Carefree town residents. What I've been hearing this evening is the issue conflated. I'm hearing fear. Oh, the developer's gonna go away. Oh, we spent so much time, 19 months, which, are we talking 19 months of residents' time or staff members' time and council members? There is a little bit of a difference. What about all the time the residents have spent filling out these surveys, coming to these very frustrating meetings? It's refreshing when we hear town council members and the mayor listen to us. But listening to some this evening that is reaching in really deep to come up with all these reasons why the SPA needs to be left in, it sounds like, oh, we're just wringing our hands, like we just can't take that SPA out. You know, Carefree residents are intelligent. We understand and support the needs of the town. We have an average annual household income of over $163,000. I believe the residents support economic development. But let's not forget that, with all due respect, planning and zoning, they're appointed individuals. Staff members are staff members, and it's really the town council and the mayor that has the responsibility to do the will of the people. We have made ourselves extraordinarily clear. Over 350 residents out of our population. It's pretty staggering. So please don't leave us tonight walking out of this room with us thinking that you didn't listen to us one more time. Please respect the residents, listen to us. We do seek partnership with you. We just want a seat at the table. We want a seat at the table, not during a COVID pandemic when, reasonably speaking, residents weren't going to be involved. So thank you, but please do the right thing.
Ms. Diane Roth?
Good evening, Council. Diane Roth, 1004 Boulder Drive. So I have a couple questions. Why the fight? Why the acrimony? It's ridiculous. I think we all want the same thing, a healthy town, physically and frankly mentally. Enough already. We are too small a town for all this division. There is no east, west, green shirts, brown shirts, whatever. We are a community of 3,600. This is ridiculous to listen to some of the things people say and do. The majority of residents want to be included into the town's big decisions. After all, we are who vote for you. We are who put you on the council. So to ignore us, you do it at your own peril. This is not an unreasonable request. We want to work with you for a better future for our town. So be with us or against us. We are not a minority. We come month after month. We spent so much time doing the general plan, printing 1,000 pages of other general plans to compare other towns. So listen to us. There's nothing that you're going to gain by ignoring us and treating us like a small minority of vocal nitwits, which we're not. We understand fiscal responsibility. We all understand cash flow. We're not ignorant. We know the money corner is the northeast corner. Why are you not focusing on that? The northwest corner is not the morning corner. And think again, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want your legacy to be that you've divided the town, you've belittled a majority? Or do you want your legacy to be that you have listened to the people in this town? You have said, we understand what they're saying. Take the SBA out, let's start again. You have nothing to lose by doing that. You have a lot to gain. You have a legacy of unification to gain. So think about it. Thank you.
Mr. Les Hardy.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm Les Hardy. I live at 34, I did it, didn't I? 34802 While Away. I live on the street that is directly across from this piece of property. I could throw a rock and hit the wash. I have a dog in this hunt. Whatever happens to this property will immediately impact my wife and me. It is not theoretical, it's actual. Now, I've heard a lot of people say tonight that they weren't engaged, they weren't involved, that they didn't know about what was going on. I beg to differ. I wrote this council a letter 3 years ago, April 21st, 2021, on subjects commenting on the general plan amendment which started this process off. It hasn't been 19 months, Mr. Mayor. It's been at least 36 months that we've been talking about this. Now, I was part of a group that came to the first meeting where Mr. Prokopek outlined the SPA, and I was part of the group that gave him a very difficult time, and we made it very clear to him that we did not like the idea of any kind of project on that property. But an amazing thing happened. He said to us, fine, what would you accept other than the houses that are already allowed? And unlike where I used to live in another state, I won't name it, but it's west of here.
Crazy land.
Where public meetings were just window dressing, this town was serious, and they invited me and the people on my street to talk to them about what we could live with. And I am part of that group who came up with all of these restrictions. We actually, I believe, are the ones who came up with the idea, if there is going to be some commercial on that property, it should be like the Hermosa Inn. It should be a small boutique. And we actually looked at a plot map. Those of you who have been to the Hermosa Inn and been to their wonderful lunch and seen the beautiful grounds there, that's on 6 acres. And it is surrounded by homes. And if you drive down the street to go to the Hermosa Inn, you will miss it if you drive by, because you can't see it because it's screened by trees. Now, okay, I support the SPA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. John Trainer, do you wish to speak now, or I'd call to the public?
I will speak now. Actually, I had 2 parts, but I'll just get it done all at once. John Trainer, P.O. Box 2014, Carefree, Arizona, because live streaming and giving out information of that nature is egregious. You have the information on file on my slip. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Members of the audience and home folks, good evening. For the record, I'm not opposed to development, the right kind of development, when it's vetted in public, with full disclosures and with respect to our zoning. We've heard from an expert who performed a conservative town forecast that our finances are sound at least until 2032. Nobody here is stupid enough to believe we would wait until 2032 to address an important issue. Why won't we believe him? He did the work. Why don't we believe him? It's incomprehensible why several of you wish to oppose the will of residents, the will expressed repeatedly since the general plan process commenced many, many months ago. Instead of seeking unity, some of you appear to encourage division. Why? Why is that necessary? Part 2. Mayor and the council are elected by residents. Only residents can fire them by routine elections or recall. Staff, on the other hand, cannot be hired or fired by residents. That's the mayor's job. For those who may not know, the mayor is the CEO of the town, the boss, if you will. We do not have a town manager form of government, though some may think so. As elected individuals, none of them should ever be intimidated or threatened by any staff member or told who they may work with or speak to. No staff member has that right. No one. Instructing another employee to monitor email conversations of elected officials is an abhorrent overreach of authority and should never be tolerated. Public records may be requested when needed without a Cold War-style snooping in Carefree. Sometime over the past decade, town residents lost control of how this town is run. The oft-mentioned forefathers would be horrified if they were alive today. Residents need to regain control of our town destiny as those forefathers intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nakisa Asizi.
Nikisa Azizi. I live here in Carefree, and I'm running for town council, so the town actually already has my address, and I hope that's okay if I just go along with my comments. So I just wanted to say that, you know, I've been to a number of these meetings here, and also, well, all the meetings were here, but with the town council and the commission, and without exception, the majority of the comments have been opposed to the spa. And I just want to refute the notion that this is a minority position. I don't think any objective bystander would come to that conclusion. I spent a lot of time outside the post office collecting signatures to get on the ballot. And the number one concern that people had, without being prompted, was open space. And the number one complaint they had was the this hotel right here. So the Hampton. So I think that kind of says it all. I feel like as our representatives, you kind of owe it to the people to further our collective will. And I understand that everyone's going to have their own opinion on what they feel would be in the best interest of the town, and I get that. But I also think that when there's such a strong consensus among the people about something, and there's not a whole lot to lose by going along with that consensus, it would be prudent to listen to the voice of the people and give them the credit that I think they deserve in terms of their vision for this town. And I also want to say that I think, you know, we don't want to lose sight of why many of us came here, at least speaking for myself. I came here largely because of the open space. And there's no guarantee that putting anything there is going to ultimately be successful economically. But the guarantee that we will have is that Carefree will never be the same. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that is the last slip. Oh, I didn't see it, but you're welcome to, Ms. Hess, come on up and state your name. You gotta fill out a slip when we're done. But please.
Okay, my name is Barbara Hess. I live at, I don't live at, but my P.O. Box is 3274, 100 Easy Street. Mayor Crane, I was very pleased to hear your comments tonight, but I have a question for you because I couldn't hear your first sentence of what you were going to put on page 27. You talked about reverting the process back to the P&Z, and I wasn't sure whether you said and a resident committee or a resident committee. Were you including the residents like you did with the signs, that kind of collaboration for discussion on the SPA if it gets removed?
Okay, so if we go to page, what I was going to add for page 27.
Yeah.
Maybe you're thinking of the action item or page 27.
Well,
'Cause
you were talking, I want to know whether your thoughts on the wording that you put in included a resident committee to work in conjunction with the P&Z, like a collaboration like they did for the signs, as opposed to this very formal feedback.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to the action item.
Okay.
Because the action says, and that's how it's stated this is how it's stated in the current version of the general plan. Utilize the Planning and Zoning Commission or a town council appointed committee as an economic development advisory group, provide citizen guidance on the redevelopment of the village center, et cetera, et cetera.
Could we change that or to an and so that the residents are absolutely included in that discussion at the table? Some committee. I think because that's what we really want. We want to be part of the process. We want to have a say at the table. We don't want the formal, you say what you say, we say what we say, and you do what you want anyways. We would like to be part of that. And the signs, everybody is saying, was a great success. Let's emulate that. SPA or no SPA. Include the town, include the residents in this process. That's what I would really like to have the wording changed to say. whether it's in or whether it's out. Give us a seat at the table.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
So please fill out a form. Fill out a second form, but fill out a form because I don't have one here. Maybe it
I
got.
gave it to you.
Okay.
Can I just comment on that?
Okay, so
Okay, I'll make a statement at the end. That's fine. Okay.
so we're good on this form? Okay, there's
I
a
was
lot
the
of stuff
first one
up
to
here.
pull it in.
You're good. Okay, Barbara, thank you. Okay, so I have no additional forms. A person can only speak one time. Mr. Beavis, you had your 3 minutes. Okay, so hearing no other, having no other forms or slips, this will close the public comment. So now we turn it back to council. Mr. Delicio has a comment.
So understand that if the SPA gets approved, this goes to a vote of the people. The residents that want a say will have that say. So you will have that. So if we want the 3,600 residents or however many of a proportion of those that are registered voters to vote on it, this is their opportunity to do it. So do it. This is your say.
Anyone else have a comment? Mr. Hatcher?
Just to, thank you. Just to clarify my point as I was bringing up earlier, it just seems to me that these 9 bullet points that Vince alluded to that's in this, on page 27, I think everyone here on the diocese and everybody in the room agree that those 9 bullet points in general are ones that we want to see followed no matter what is built there. Or what is built there.
Yeah, well, I would agree with
Would
you.
that be everybody?
Yeah,
Is that within reason? Okay.
Yes.
Well, the only comment, I only heard one complaint about the languid lane and making sure that there's no ingress egress
Okay.
for a resort.
Okay.
So other than that, I have not heard any complaints about each specific item.
Okay. So if that is true, and the language referencing the paragraph or a few lines above that is what's creating a lot of consternation here. If we remove that and agree that these 9 bullet points are what, no matter what is built there, is guidelines we want that builder to follow. And then we have everyone can decide what is built there and vote on that. But I'm just saying, if we keep those 9 bullet points in there, we're really achieving what the SPA is doing in spirit. So it's really a hybrid, if you will, between Vince's point and Sheila's point and that of the mayor, bringing those 2 ideas together, which essentially is really ending up by removing, not necessarily adding, but I think if we construct it that way, I think we'll have a win-win.
So Matt, do you have a comment about that? What do you think?
Well, I greatly appreciate the active thought process. I guess I was just wanting to clarify, if that language were struck, so we're thinking of removing the SPA and removing that language, or you would keep the SPA but remove this language?
I would remove the SPA and remove that sentence or couple lines and retain, they may need to be a little more refined, but retain those 9 bullet points, which are the drivers or the parameters of anything that is built there. That I think we all agree on.
Okay.
The one thing that we are now introducing is more input that has an impact on the final decision of what is built there by removing the SPA. I think by combining it in this approach, it's a win-win for the community and council.
I would agree with the notion that if we're going to remove the SPA, that one would typically see any type of constraints, but to specify a specific use would be awkward, right?
Right.
So, if you're gonna remove it, I would agree that that language probably would be removed, and you're left with just what you can or can't do, so to speak.
Yeah, because,
And
I
what
mean,
you're
as the
not.
mayor was,
But if you were gonna leave the SPA, then there's no point of taking out, obviously, the use
right.
associated with it. So your approach holds water in its suggestion. So I can just leave it at that. In terms of the follow-through, though, is I would agree with the mayor's concept that if we were to change something to remove an SPA, that you'd want to marry that up with an action item.
Okay, but just going back to Mr. Hatcher's comment. So, you know, we take out the SPA, but we leave in these limitations, these restrictions. Is that does that work? Is it, I see the merit of it.
We all know the situation, so everyone's pointed out that you can make arguments for or against, and so I feel inept in terms of not being able to arrive at a solution for everyone. So the best I can offer is that I do, if that is a proposal, I do agree with the notion of removing the land use associated with it, because if we're going to go the distance of saying, you know, if someone were to apply the logic, oh, let's take the SPA off, but keep this language in there, then I would just make the argument, well, what are we doing? Why, that's an SPA. So if you're going to take it out, then you do kind of need to take the land use with it, and you can stick with all the other things that you don't want it to do, but it seems awkward to leave everything in there and just change the color on the map, because that's what we're
Okay.
doing.
So maybe the way to look at this is we're going back to what I was thinking in the beginning, is that, you know, we have these limitations, and I think they're very good.
Mhm.
But if we take the SPA out, they're not. We don't take this to a shredder. We don't like take them out of our minds. We've developed this as a group, people interested in, you know, coming up with good development, and the next commissioners, the next council people, they will start at these limitations, at these.
Exactly.
So even
These
if
will
we-
be the box that we're giving
Yeah,
them to
so
work
even if
with.
we take it out, say we take out the SPA, and this
That's-
paragraph goes away, it's still, all these things are still up here, they're still, the next commissioners, the next mayor, the next council people, the public will not allow us to begin a conversation without these things.
These things. And I'm going to make the assumption that everybody's read these 9 bullet points on page 27. And in general, you may reword them a little bit, but in general, we all agree with that. Let's start with that.
Yeah, and so don't forget it when the time comes, right? So when that,
Yeah.
so if the SPA comes out and the applicant comes forward, this is where we're gonna
This is
start.
where
this
you got to
thing.
start with.
Okay, so this is where I'm completely confused. If everybody agrees with these items, why are we taking out the SPA? What I have heard from people in all of the previous meetings are 2 issues as to why they want to take out the SPA. One is that they felt we weren't transparent. That is factually incorrect. It is well documented that we were transparent, and people had the ability to engage, and maybe they were distracted or weren't engaging at that time. The second is that because of this, they didn't have a voice, and they couldn't control the outcome. So here we are. We have 9 items that we can all agree on, and there are plenty of opportunities going forward to share your voice on starting at this ground 0+1. You have plenty of opportunities with any rendering that comes up. We have to figure out and see if it's workable for the community with traffic, noise, water, and light. Those are not foregone conclusions that is all going to be amenable to people.
But
It may not work.
But it's not, Sheila. If this was a piece of paper, and we had all this written on there, I could take that one couple sentences out and give it to a developer, and I can take it and leave it all in and give it to another developer. And they're gonna interpret that information differently. Why? Because one is prefaced with a project, one is not. But both have guidelines that we all approve, that if you're gonna build something here, you gotta follow these guidelines.
That's where
The
we are.
guidelines
That's the
are
difference.
there. The framework is there, and
No.
what we are doing is we're
Yes, we
giving
are.
the public the opportunity to vote on it by keeping this in.
And we can give the public the opportunity to vote on it by taking it out.
That's right. I think it's a good compromise, personally. That's my thought.
Okay, so any other comments from council?
One more.
Go right ahead.
Matt, you did a great job.
Yeah, good job,
And
Matt.
Stacy, as always.
Yeah, very good. All right, so now we have to decide how we're gonna move forward. And I would entertain a motion to remove the SPA and to insert language as I had proposed earlier, with one modification as mentioned by Ms. Hess, that or becomes an and in the action item. So, no motions? Okay, so hearing none, let's try a different tact. Let's have a motion, I ask for a motion to approve the SPA, or approve the general plan as it is.
Motion to approve the general plan with the SPA as it is.
Any other comments from council?
I think there's a third option.
Well, okay, I'm not sure we can,
Yeah, but the motion's been made.
All right.
yes, so I need to make sure I do this right. Okay. So is there any other discussion? And did you wish to make an amendment to the motion?
Well, the motion is to, move forward with the spa and keep it in. My amendment is to remove the spa and leave these 9 bullet points that were defined in the original spa proposal in there, and add the action items that the mayor had initially. That's my proposal.
How
Or
can you,
amendment.
how
I'm
can you
thinking-
leave these in if you don't have a spa? I mean, there's nothing to leave it in to dictate, to,
We can't,
I mean, these are you can't
they're
have.
guidelines, but they're generic, they're not specific to a particular project.
Well,
Yeah, I
but
think,
why have guidelines for something that we don't have in the plan? If you-
But we have characteristics that we want to be there when it's done.
Okay, Matt, didn't you just explain that taking out the SPA designation and leaving all of this in?
From my perspective, so if we could go back in time, I would have proposed a resort on this first, and then let everybody lose their mind with, what are you doing putting a resort? And then we would pull it back to an SPA. And then the SPA would put all this qualifiers in there, and that's usually how it works. We started with this SPA, and we've heard from residents of the concern about how we arrived at that. And so this text is applied to a location on the map via that color, SPA. So if we were to take the SPA out, it does seem awkward and strange to then leave language in that would speak to a resort, because that's why we're putting the SPA on there. That said, all these other qualifiers, 1 through 9, can be qualifiers of whatever is proposed there. So if it was yellow, we could say we'd have to draw some boundary around this location that said this yellow is different than all the other yellow in the town, and it's subject to 1 through 9. That would be how I would approach it with this notion. But it's a conundrum. I feel like we're in our neutral corners because we're we feel that if we have the color we want on the map, it's a win or it's a loss. And I just keep coming back, it's the text that matters. And if we're okay with the text, the color on the map has no matter. It's talking about what do these words say, and an attorney will go right to these words and focus on what they say. So, you know, we can sit here all night and talk about the nuances of this, but, you know, we need someone to step up and say, I'll acquiesce and I'll say that we'll do it this way, but whichever way we go, someone's gonna have to step up and champion this. So if we take it out, then we're gonna have to make sure that this council continues to champion the economic development of that. And I'm looking at all these residents, you're gonna have to champion and get this plan approved if we take it out. Because if it doesn't get approved, that's not a good look. And so if we leave it in, then it's everyone's opportunity and responsibility to make sure that this place that we care about gets the final say in terms of what's best on that corner. So it's not the property owner and a developer he has in mind, it's what is best for that corner at that point in time. And so I urge everyone to put your concrete kind of position on this aside and really say that, okay, if I'm gonna live with this SPA, I'm gonna hold us to this and we're gonna work on it. If we take it out, then the other side is gonna be asked to do the same thing. And so someone's gonna have to step up and say that we're gonna lead and we're gonna do it this way, but we're not gonna forget the other side of the coin. And I urge everyone to try and get to a resolution here, because listen, if we don't get this on the ballot, then state law says we have to keep trying. And I don't understand where we hear all of this, everyone acknowledges it can go either way. Well, then what are we gonna propose in 4 months that's gonna be different? I don't think anything. And so it is the follow through no matter which way we go. And so with that, I unfortunately, I can't pick which way that is, but I would say don't feel as if you're losing something if it doesn't go the way you came into this room thinking. It's the follow through that's gonna matter.
So Matt, just to understand, you're recommending leaving it in. Is that correct?
As I started this, and I apologize to anyone because I've enjoyed speaking to residents, and it's against every fiber of me to hear all of this opposition and to suggest something different. But it is, from a planning standpoint, it makes good planning sense because of, I enjoyed the resident who spoke about being next door to this and saying, well, wait, if I was asked what would I accept, this was it. Now, that is where my personal feelings are. But yes, if I was in your shoes, having all these residents say that they are concerned about it would influence me. And so I would then say, okay, but I am not gonna give up on this, guys, and it's gonna be something that I'll bring up at council meetings. It's gonna be something that we're gonna continue to champion, and so it's not going away. And so I would say, I know I hear people clapping, but I'm not trying to, win any preference here. It's to say that we can accomplish what we want to do either way. We just have to have everyone have a little bit of trust, and that's apparently hard right now.
So I just still don't understand. You've taken a lot of words to not answer my question. Do you want to leave it, are you saying leave it in?
I'm telling you that as a planner, what is in there is appropriate and addresses the challenges that are there from a planning standpoint.
But if we were to take it out, the language I suggested gives us the foundation to move forward, and just like you just said, to have an applicant come forward and come up with a good general plan amendment that's acceptable to the people, correct?
You could take it out, and at that point, then at any time, a property owner, whoever it is, can propose any amendment to the general plan. It might not even be an SPA. It might be some other land use.
Could be.
So I try to understand, I care about the facts deeply because I had a career that I had to do that. And so I've been trained well in that. I have been trying to understand by talking to people. I probably can beat everybody combined in the amount of time I have spent at the post office talking to people. A lot of people who most are not here tonight. So in listening to residents, I heard that they did not like the process because they felt it wasn't transparent. I have tried to find facts that validate that, and there are none. We had more meetings than even required by state law, as well as the planning and zoning meeting and the town council meeting for this SPA amendment. So to me, that we were not transparent is not valid because there are no facts supporting that. And on the other side of having your voice heard, once again, there are plenty of opportunities before we even get to planning and zoning, before we even get to town council, and can be referred to voters to share your thoughts. And if we all agree that these 9 items, which pretty much explains a casita-style resort, if we are all in agreement on that, that's wonderful. It's here now. We can move forward together agreeing that these 9 items fit, and we can all have the public process to see if it really works when an application comes in. It doesn't, and so once again, there are no facts that validate that people aren't gonna have a voice. They will have a voice.
So I would just say, if we, what you're saying, I believe, don't let me put words in your mouth, but if we leave it in, people will have a voice because there'll be a process. And we've listened to all these folks speak to us for 19 months, and we've heard a message over and over again to take it out. And we're going to ignore that message, but we're going to guarantee you that when you come back, when this thing comes back to us, we're going to listen to you.
But that's my point. That's my point, is that I have heard that. I want to know why. Why, and what I heard why was that we were not transparent. That is not true. We were transparent.
Yes, sir. Okay. Do you accept the amendment?
I do not accept the amendment.
Okay. Please, no comments from the audience. Okay, so I believe we're in a position to have a vote. So let's do a roll call vote.
Would you
And
just-
so, and let's please reiterate what we're voting on.
Thank you.
So maybe Candace, could you do that for us?
Yes, sir. So the motion is to approve the general plan amendment with the spa designation left in by Vince DiElisio, Councilmember DiElisio, and a second by Sheila.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Miller, how do you vote?
I don't support it.
No.
Remove this SPA.
Councilmember Amoroso, how do you vote?
I support the SPA.
Councilmember DiElisio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
No.
Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
No.
Yes, sir. It's a vote of 4 yeses, 3 nos. You do not have a majority.
Correct. So just to reiterate, so for this measure to pass, we needed a supermajority, which means that we needed 5 votes. So we have only 4 votes. So that means the measure, the general plan does not go to the public for a vote until we arrive, probably at a future meeting, to a supermajority. Correct, Counselor? So maybe that happens when we have a seat in new council in December, right? We have an election. There'll be at least 1 new face, maybe 3 new faces. And we will bring it to the council and we'll have a vote again.
Okay.
Any other comments from council? I mean,
Yes.
would you agree with what I said?
I just have one question for Matt. Is the SPA defined by the introduction of what we would prefer to have being built on this land, or is it defined by the restrictions that we apply to what is built on the land? Which is it?
The SPA, if you could look at your screen, we did work with this general plan update to clarify what the SPA designation is. So there is a detailed explanation within the land use categories of what an SPA is.
All right.
And then we utilize the growth area section to qualify what occurs in that particular SPA location.
So the SPA really defines what is to be, not what is being built, but
It's just
how
a-
it's built.
It's like another land use, like we have commercial, open space. When we know that a certain property has different ways that it could or might develop, and there's no clear distinction as to what is best, in other general plans, we would maybe call it mixed use or bring up some other term. In Carefree, the term was already established as a special planning area. And so we just qualified and better defined what does a special planning area mean, and then used the language that was constructed through the amendment process to help put some further controls on that. But that is the way that all general plans would address a property if the future of it is not clear. And we obviously have to put the pens down sometime, and so we can't arrive at a conclusion. And so a lot of general plans, because they're general, they're not a specific plan. If we were doing a specific plan, then we would be absolute about what is it that we're doing here. And here we're trying to clarify the special aspect that we recognize it's residential now, but if we have the opportunity for a resort, this is what we would support. And so, I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does, and I'll close. It just seems to me that we spend time defining characteristics of the land and the development, and then at the next page 27, we state, well, we think we're going to build a spa or a casita there, and then we further enhance this original description with 9 bullet points. And my question is, if we remove the phrase referencing the resort, then we have 9 bullet points that define in general what we do and don't want on that land, and the SPA, as originally defined here, does the same thing. We're not stating a specific application. I'm trying to make the distinction of general characteristics and a specific statement of a resort, and I think that's the issue.
If I follow you, the thing that I land on is we take the gray off, right? If what you're suggesting is we go back to the very low density residential, we have other areas on the map that are yellow, right? So we have a land use description for very low density, right? It has no language in that yellow that guides development on that beyond the density.
Okay.
So if we were to say on the growth page, oh, by the way, here's 9 things that apply to this site, there's nothing on the land use plan to say where that site is, right? So we would have to draw a boundary on the yellow to say this area applies to this language. And if you start to do that, it begs the question, isn't that what the gray is doing? Of just defining an area that, hey, there's other language you need to go look at and read that applies to this. So it does get complicated, but what I'm trying to convey is that even if we were to take the SPA out and leave this language in, we have a land use plan with yellow all over it. And so I would have to get in there and draw a red outline, apologize, to convey that the language we're reading, where does that, it says the northwest corner, but
Right.
how much does that cover? So when you outline it, you then are starting to call it out, right? You're calling it out as special compared to all the other yellow areas.
But can it be special with the 9 bullet points and that's it? Or does we have to have the 9 bullet points and the referencing of a casita to be built there?
I think you could take the reference out to of the resort. I don't know if that's what I was hearing from residents about what they were concerned about. But if that is, the residents would find that as moving in the right direction.
So
That's a-
I
That's what I'm
would
saying.
I
I'm
would
just
just
trying to make
suggest that
that's
this
all.
thing's gonna come back to council again,
Okay.
and then we can revisit it. Gotcha. Okay, so please, no, not yet. So this concludes this particular item on the agenda. Next item up is call to the public. Do we have any slips? No slips for call to the public. So now I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So thank you all for participating.